Easiest way you can prove that you are going to be the person that's going to help them on their real estate journey is to understand them and their current situation. If you don't understand them and their current situation, you know a lot about properties, you know a lot about that property, you know a lot about the real estate marketplace, you know a lot about financial products, but until you know a lot about them, you're not helpful to them.
Go ahead, Phil.
I'm just saying hi, Joe. I'm just
good morning.
Admiring your beautiful backdrop there of cabin life.
Yeah. Well, it sounds so much better when you say it. If I could fake a British accent, I think I'd be significantly more successful in life.
You believe so?
100%. It's about what I say, but if I could say it the way you say it, I think it would work even more. Taylor and I ran a brokerage with a British guy, and we would get up and say things we thought were smart, and he would get up and say things we didn't even think were that smart, but he said it with an accent, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, he's so brilliant. We're like, he's just saying it with an accent. Anyways.
But you're not bitter, right? You're not bitter in any way.
Not at all. Not at all.
Any malice back here. I got it.
Not at all. All right, guys. Well, welcome. I am so excited. I've known Phil for a long time, recently attended a training he put on in Orlando, Florida. I'm not a note taker by nature. It's not one of the things I'm very good at, but I literally left the meeting and my hands were cramped a little bit because I took so many stinking notes just because I found so much value in what Phil brought to the table. Let me read a little bit of his bio. It's probably the most impressive one I've ever read, and it may embarrass him a little bit, but all right. So he's founded 5 multi-million-dollar companies. He's the president of Orange and Gray, a market-leading communication agency, strategic advisor to pioneering leaders of the world's biggest brands. If you have any doubt, go to philmjones.com and look at the brands he's advised. It was literally everybody. Youngest ever winner of the British Excellence of Sales and Marketing Award, one of less than 200 living members of the National Speakers Hall of Fame, innovator of the highly coveted How to Persuade Audible production, creator of the, listen to this one, creator of the most listened to nonfiction book of all time. That's big. Author of 7 best-selling business books and 1 gorgeous children's book. Phil, thank you for joining us. I know every agent I've talked to is ecstatic that you're here with us. Exactly what to say is a masterpiece, exactly what to say for real estate. I was literally reading it this morning out on my porch. We're up at our place in Utah. And every time I turn the page, and I 100% mean this, what you've written like becomes part of me. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's not like, because I've ingested what you've taught and it literally has become mine. I use these phrases now in my natural communications. I don't have to fake it. So
that was always the objective, right? Is to turn my work into your work so you can own it and then you can be fully present in the moments where it matters.
100%. So talk a little bit about how you got here. What is your educational background? What passion for it's almost like a communication science.
I'll try and do this as briefly as possible. So I started with my first business when I was 14 years of age. I started knocking on my doors of my neighbors, asking them whether they wanted their cars washed. I did okay with a little car cleaning business, so much so that by the age of 15, I was making more money than the bulk of my school teachers. Didn't quite go to school as often as I should, yet still really valued education in some way, shape or form. At the age of 18, I'd built a number of small businesses, had an offer on the table to go to a prestigious university in my country. I didn't want to go. So I went and got a big job as the youngest ever sales manager of one of the largest department store groups in the UK. And there's a beautiful thing about being in a senior leadership position at the age of 18 is that you just don't know what you don't know. Right. So when you're looking to be able to try and get stuff done or achieve results, you very quickly realize that success leaves clues. And if you're brave enough to be able to ask for it from people who are ahead of you on the race, more often than not, people are happy to give it to you. So I got all this proven stuff back from people I admired and I respected, but also I hit this really big point of friction is that I was leading teams of people that almost always were at least double my age. and faced a lot of prejudice because of that as well. And one of the things that I learned through osmosis as to how I could influence other people was to borrow stories. So all I would do is I'd study what other successful people were doing, and then I'd be more like Joe. Like, that was really my entire leadership style, is let's identify the problems we're looking to solve. Let's find people who are doing a great job of that, and then teach people to be more like the person that's getting great results. And I kept finding patterns, patterns in high achievers. And, when I started my sales training business after having a, fairly successful corporate career back in 2008, 2009, one of the little takeaways in my first sales training workshop was that I'd talk about magic words. And they were little sprinklings of 3-4 examples of word choices. But it was always the stuff that people found really sticky. They come back to me like 3-5 years afterwards. They're like, I'm still doing that most people thing. And I'm like, that's really cool. So it started to become the most portable story way of me being able to grow my body of work. And I would.
So talk about really quick, the magic words. Were these things you saw others use? And you're like, whenever that guy says most people, or whenever that person says, it seems like you have 3 options. Like, was it collected that way?
Wasn't as organic as that, or it was perhaps even more organic than that. It was creating a melting pot of brilliance of others, and then finding ways to be able to package it and present it back towards other people. Because often what happens is so the book Exactly What to Say is actually a little bit of a trick. It isn't 23 precise sequences of words, it's 23 principles disguised as a sequence of words. Yeah, I can get a better result teaching you the words for you to understand the principle than I could trying to teach you the principle and ask you to come up with the words. And what would happen is, on repeat, I'd see people adopting the principle. So let's take, for example, the words like most people, is what people would do to be able to get somebody collectively in agreement to be able to move towards something they were nervous about, is they'd bring some form of social proof towards the fact that other people like them have acted like them before them. I just found a way to be able to shortcut it with 2 words to get people towards those same outcome quicker. And in high volume, high ticket sales environments, speed of transaction is as important as size of transaction. You got 35 people coming through the door. You can do 7 transactions in 30 minutes or 2. You do 7 transactions in 30 minutes and you still maintain the quality, you make good money. You do 2, you make wages. And that's where I got really hooked on this, is how do I get good results and fast? And that's when it was, let's engage supercomputer on some of these principles and give people, the cheat code. And the books evolved, Joe, as well. Is, the first book, Magic Words, that I wrote in 2011 was a bet. It was a dare. So I was in a mastermind group and people were talking about how difficult it was to publish. I'm like, it's easy. You could turn a simple book around in a couple of weeks with the self-publishing platforms that existed at the time. And they said, well, put your money where your mouth is. And I did. So I wrote Exactly What to Say I wrote Magic Words in 2 weeks, but it was the expansion of a 2-page PDF that I delivered to a customer service team in a telecommunications company just a week or so prior. So I made a glorified PDF. And then Exactly What to Say has been born out of that book, Magic Words, as rewriting it as version 3.0. And we've just rewritten Exactly What to Say again and elevated the lessons, learnings, and examples in it even more. So that book comes out next month. But it's the same book, reimagined, reinvented with a bit more to it.
So has anyone ever made the comparison? Because when reading your book, I almost felt like it was the communications version, like the salesman's version of How to Win Friends and Influence People, but in a communication way. Has that comparison ever been made?
It has been. And then even the workshop that I ran with Audible, which was the How to Persuade and Get Paid, which for those that can see right now is, that was my billboard poster for me performing off Broadway, our one-man show, which was still a fun highlight in my life. But
that's awesome.
Is that body of work on Audible on repeat in reviews of people have said, this is like Dale Carnegie, but for the modern age. This is How to Win Friends and Influence People, but for these current times. So if you're a fan of my work and you haven't listened to How to Persuade and Get Paid, I think that is probably my greatest piece of work that is still relatively undiscovered, which is what happens when you do an Audible original. Is, you know, they hide it in the crevices of just certain types of Audible members. But
well, and this is because I made this comment in Orlando, which I feel the same way about how to win friends and influence people. It's a two-edged sword, right? Like, these principles can be used in a highly manipulative way, yep, or they can be used in a highly effective way to help somebody make a good decision.
An integrity focused way. And I think the Peter Parker or Uncle Ben said it first, right? With great power comes great responsibility.
Right.
And the same is true with how we advise or guide anybody towards anything. So my assumption when working with any group of people, particularly people connected to Joe, is you're integrity focused. You want to win the game, not win the day, which I think is a big difference on, right? Is that we can all do things that have us win the day, but you don't get to win the game if you only focus on the day. And therefore that you'll utilize these skills to be able to achieve outcomes in which everybody wins. Yeah. So in the real estate world, like, client has to win first, right? And agent has to win, and brokerage needs to win, and, you know, mortgage lender needs to win. And I think we're starting to realize in a modern sales world is there doesn't have to be a winner and a loser. There can actually be multiple winners if you play the long game and you play to be able to win it, you know, for the long term. It's this, you know, I'm hunting to kill mindset that I'm actually trying to get people away from.
Well, and I think so. One thing was so valuable for me. I had to have a really hard discussion with a child right after coming home from Orlando. My natural inclination is to be a bull in a china closet. Like, that's just my person. I'm a very passionate person by nature. So in having a hard conversation with a teenage daughter, I said, I'm going to Phil Jones this thing. And I approached her with a very simple phrase that completely disarmed her. And now, I wasn't using this in a manipulative way. I said, sweetheart, how open-minded are you to having a discussion with me about what I find so important about this specific subject? And like, her anger and frustration turned into softness. And by the end, she was bawling, and we had a great conversation. I was like, I'm grateful today for Phil Jones, because were it not for reading that principle that I intended to use in a business environment, I would have completely butchered this discussion with a teenage daughter and probably created some scar tissue. But instead, we had this huge healing moment. And so that's what I love so much about what you teach is, yes, we should be using it in a business environment, but yes, we should be using it in a familial environment and a friendship environment. And it's gravity, right? It's just true principles.
And look at where we're at in the world right now, particularly from a real estate point. It is, you know, there's never been a better time to win value of a client, them understanding why you as opposed to somebody else like you, because there is so much discrepancy. There are so many fears. There are so many worries. Is being that useful guide in their transaction process has never been more valuable than right now, because there are so many variables. Yet what there is there's this fear attached from the preconceived idea of what you are at the front of every conversation, is that you're only in it for the money. You don't have the best interests at heart. Is, you know, you couldn't care less what they do as long as they do something quick and they do it with you, right? Like that's the perception. That's what you're up against. And we shouldn't try and change that perception in one conversation. We should change that perception through multiple experiences. Right. And to Joe's example there, the first big lesson is permission. Like, our natural reaction when somebody says something we don't like is we reach for a yeah, but moment, right? Which is really what Joe was naturally looking to be able to move into, is to tell mode, is to, yeah, but let me tell you how this really is, which creates friction.
Right.
Second, you catch a beat and you then ask for permission to have the conversation you'd like to have, the guard's dropped.
Right.
Think about it now when somebody is thinking of, you know, listing with somebody else. You know, how open-minded would you be to just having a discussion to understand the real risks of entering into this market without an experienced agent at this time? How open-minded would you be to having that conversation just to understand the real risks before you make your mind up? It's hard to say no to, right? But you have to sometimes take the heat out of the conversation if you want to be able to change the perspective of where the other person is looking at it from. Yet our natural reaction is, what's the one-liners? How do I approach fire with fire? And what ends up happening is you end up with two losers.
Which you can use your phrases a lot of times as swords.
Yes.
Like, oh yeah, well, what do you understand about it? Like, you can use some of these magic words as weapons if they're not used correctly. So maybe walk us through a little bit of mental framing around some of these words you use. And there's almost the pause that comes first, and the not just what words do I use, but how do I deliver them in a way that doesn't cause resistance, but creates open-mindedness.
Yeah, let's see if I can just show you something. I'm going to just plug a piece of kit in here, see if this works in the way that I want it to. Is that picking this up? I think so.
Yeah, we got it.
And in fact, let me lose that a second. And I'm going to come here instead. You guys see me and you see a screen?
Yep.
You don't need that screen. We need this screen. I want you to think about how to think about these word choices by really understanding what I believe to be the three critical ingredients for every important conversation. Listing appointment, buyer, a seller looking to be able to reduce their fee, chatting with your daughter about cleaning her bedroom. I don't care what it is. Same for three. is every great conversation should start from a position of curiosity. Behind curiosity is then empathy. And then behind empathy is courage. And it's always these same three ingredients in this precise order. And I know that there's nothing new in any of those words, but why those words and why that order? Well, let's take the curiosity piece. Is if we fail to start a conversation from a position of curiosity, what we're doing is we're starting a conversation from a position of certainty. And what certainty does is it creates friction. Like, how many times have you ever met somebody where they're so sure of themselves, they're so certain of themselves, they know so much about what they know about that you're like, really now? Right?
I see him every morning when I'm brushing my teeth. Yeah.
Right? It is you're naturally argumentative towards the person that's so sure of themselves.
Right.
Whereas the person that's curious, you're naturally wanting to lean in and being able to explore on a journey together. The vicious irony is that the more certain you are of yourself, the more uncertainty you create in the other person. So if you're certain that now's the right time to sell your home, I'm going to prove you wrong.
Right.
If you're certain that you should list with me and not anybody else, I'm going to prove you wrong.
What's funny about curiosity is the number one complaint that clients in the industry have about real estate professionals is they don't listen to me.
Correct. And curiosity earns you context. Probably the biggest missing ingredient from many of the conversations you're having with buyers and sellers right now is you do not understand enough of their context. And what you're trying to do is to give advice from a position that is lacking data.
Context meaning why they are doing what they're doing.
Context meaning the ability to be able to see the world somewhere close to their eyes. And let's look at it this way. The simplest of example, online leads right now, right? Online lead comes in. You've got somebody who wants to view 123 Main Street. We jump straight to the I need to get them to an appointment quickly because the first person to get them to a showing on that property is likely to win. Now, that might be true if it was 2016. I don't know if that's true today. Because chances are, if they've clicked information on that property, they've clicked information on 3, 4, 5 other people's properties as well, and are actually engaging with multiple real estate agents accidentally. They didn't want to work with multiple real estate agents. They just followed 3 to 5 pieces of different online bait and now found themselves in 3 to 5 different people's lead generation funnels. That's just a fact. Nobody stops with enough curiosity to say, is this the only property you're interested in? Because more often than not, they're going to say, well, no, I'm just looking for, a 3-bed, 2-bath in that kind of vicinity around that kind of price point. Well, how long have you been looking? Well, we've actually been at this a year. I've lost out 3 times. And the last real estate agent we had kind of sucked. It was terrible. I think they gave us bad advice. Different context, right?
Yeah.
All there for the taking if we're prepared to take it. But we don't. We jump straight to let me get them to the appointment. And then we're like, didn't show, did they?
Well, so are we talking about are we talking about moving fast in a slow and controlled environment? I mean, is that, because it's not just move slow, it's about slow down so that you can
slow down on purpose.
Right.
Slow down on purpose, collect evidence, right? There is a point. In fact, let me give you a sneak preview, something on my desk right now. It's a new book I'm collaborating on somebody with. It's How Modern Marketers Win Trust. And it's called Prove It. Like, if you want to be the agent of choice, given you know how much choice people really have right now, prove it.
Yeah.
Easiest way you can prove that you are going to be the person that's going to help them on their real estate journey is to understand them and their current situation. If you don't understand them and their current situation, you know a lot about properties, you know a lot about that property, you know a lot about the real estate marketplace, you know a lot about financial products, but until you know a lot about them, you're not helpful to them. I think that's the place to shine.
Now, I can't remember whether it was you or Chris who gave the definition of empathy. It was like my favorite definition, because empathy.
I'm going to share it in a minute. I'm going to share it in a minute, right? See, when you're curious for long enough, what happens is you actually reach empathy. Empathy is like a buzzword. People think we need to be more empathetic, but they still don't know what the word means.
Right.
And the definition of empathy in my world, I borrow from a speaker, author friend of mine called Jon Acuff. And Jon Acuff describes empathy as to care about what the people you care about care about.
Yeah.
It's such a simple thing to think about. But when you look at many of your communications, you'll realize the person you care about most is you. I was just checking in. I was hoping. I was looking to. You're the star of your own story. Also, we have to remember in the real estate world that nobody wants to buy a house. Nobody wants to sell a house. They want to buy a house because. They want to sell a house because. You have to care about the because.
Right.
And I think if you don't know about the because, then all you can do is, are you ready yet? How about right now? How about now? Now? Right? Like, that's the best we can do. But when you have empathy, you become relatable. There is a button that exists up here in the head of every decision maker on the planet. And it's a button I call the show me that you know me button. The second you trigger the show me that you know me button, it becomes you and them versus it. Whereas more often than not, we think it's us versus them.
Right.
It needs to be you and them versus it. It needs to be you helping them get moved so they don't have to have that sucky commute anymore. It's you helping them make sure that their girls have a bedroom of their own. It's you helping them be able to live the slower paced life that they can only always dream of. I don't care what the because is, but if you don't know what it is, you think they're looking for a 3-bed, 2-bath house. They're not. They're looking for a different lifestyle.
So do this. If you're getting value out of this, drop a thumbs up, a hand raise, a 10 out of 10 in the comments. I literally am surprised I'm learning so much so fast, because I just spent a full day with you like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But man, this is great. So the conversations we have then become the great search for because. Like when we get a lead given to us, my goal is discover this person's because. We so often try to discover this person's what are they looking for? But we shortcut that and we miss the why they're looking for what they're looking for. Therefore, we're failing.
Correct. Or we're not differentiating. I wouldn't even say we're failing. Is you want to prove that you are different to every other real estate agent and then behave in the exact same way. Right? This is insanity. If you want to say we're different, show you're different. And I think the easiest differentiator you have is genuine sincerity, which is only created through curiosity and reaching empathy. Now, if you are empathetic for long enough, you can then activate the courage. And by courage, I don't mean like jump out of an airplane courage, go to war courage. I'm talking about the courage just to ask. And that ask could be like, would it be helpful if I got 2 other properties in that neighborhood to be able to show you just for comparison while we're out for the hour? The ask could be, I know you say thank you so much for the service we provide in helping you find your own home, your new home. How would you feel about maybe transferring some of those words into an online review on Google or Zillow or wherever else you might want it? But I'm talking about the courage to ask to drive a predetermined action that you chose. But if you start just by asking with your autoresponder emails, your pre-written text codes, your follow-up boss that then says just click link and leave review here, we are supporting the evidence of I don't care. Whereas if what you are is you're curious enough to understand their context, you're empathetic enough to be truly relatable, and then have the courage to make asks that serve them and serve you, before you know it, you've just got this never-ending flow of opportunity. But I think that lens on the words, I'm hoping helps as well, in that you can look at every example in here and saying, is this allowing me to infuse more curiosity? Is this helping me reach a position of empathy? Is this giving me a tool to be more courageous when I need to be able to make an ask?
So many of the people on this call, Phil, are team leaders. They run teams.
Great.
What are the evidences that you would look for if you were a leader because so much of the real estate industry is constant, brand new conversations with recent inquiries. So if you're walking around an office and there's a number of agents in there communicating with potential clients, what are some of the evidences that a team leader could look for to say, okay, we're curious, we're building empathy. Courage is sometimes misaligned and sometimes faked and all that. But I would what are you looking for out of curiosity and empathy? And how do you know if that's matriculating to your agent base? So you walk through an office and go like, okay, these guys get it. What does it look like?
Well, what do you want to find out? What are the pieces of evidence you're looking to collect from every conversation that would allow that conversation to be successful? If this is a new buyer inquiry, where are they living right now? How long have they been looking in that area? What is their current situation? Can you understand that what is your current situation is a better question to ask than have you been pre-approved for a mortgage? Right? What is your current situation? It's such a beautiful, big open question that can allow somebody to fill the gaps, and you can collect the details that you're missing to add specificity to it. But I think if I'm a team leader that is looking to be able to get better results for my team, I would be asking, what do you know about questions? What do you know about their current situation? I understand they're a prospect, but what do you know about them? What do you understand about the timeline of what they're looking to get done by? What do you understand about how long they've been in this market? What do you understand about their current experience of the house buying process in this area? And I think you being curious to ask them the questions they should know the answers to that they don't know the answers to is going to help them become naturally more curious, to collect more of the evidence you're looking for.
And I think that's a massive takeaway. I hope you team leaders heard that. I think for us, we use a lot of data analytics to look at the number of conversations our agents are having, the number of appointments they set, the number of appointments they meet, very analytical. But I think adding in the component of in our one-on-one conversations with the agents we lead, tell me about these 4 or 5 clients you're currently working. What is their why? What is their because? What do we understand about what they're looking for?
But you've got to be better than saying what is their why, right? How many times have you been on the receiving end of a coaching conversation where somebody says, well, tell me about your goals?
A lot.
What are your plans for the next 5-10 years? It's a lazy freaking question. And it gets a lazy answer. So you shouldn't be asking what's their why is. You should be asking broader and wider what do you understand about their current situation? I think is good enough. And then peel back the onion one layer at a time, as opposed to try and get straight to the heart. And it's being brave enough to say that there is more context here for us to be able to get at if we're brave enough to understand it. And you take that coaching question of what are your goals is, what are you hoping to achieve here in this role in the next few months?
Well, and I think that I think the irony. Yeah. I think the irony in this is that we've been successful. A lot of real estate teams have been successful, highly focused on the what.
Yeah.
This person wants a 1-story home with an RV gate and a pool. And then that's our focus. And I'm curious how often we understand why their current situation is leading them to want that.
Right.
And I don't know that I've ever dug that deep in 20 years of being in the real estate industry. And it's such a powerful principle.
And I think it's imperative for where we're at in the market right now. Because actually, historically, you can have a fairly decent real estate business with a pin and a map, draw a circle around it, being one of the handful of active realtors in your area, you can build a buoyant business. Now, all of a sudden, with nationalization and globalization, people can serve bigger areas. Now, all of a sudden, consumers have more choice. And they're asking the question, why you? Like, it used to be a secret how you earn your money. Like, and the consumers just viewed it as like a tax. Whereas now what we're saying is, I'm going to show you why you're paying, somebody 6%, 7%, 8%. Like, we need to have more visibility in the value that we truly provide. And that's going to change the stories. If you are the holder of the keys that can let people into properties, or the person who has the gateway to the MLS so that my property can get eyes on it from Zillow, and then you can deal with some of the paperwork, you ain't worth your money.
You'll get overrun. So how does an agent, in your opinion, gain the confidence around to be able to speak with, I am different and here's why? How do they gain that confidence?
Experience. There's no other way. You can fast track experience by doing more of it. You can gain experience in lower stakes environments. You can role play with each other and garner experience. You can spend time with more experienced people and borrow experience, but you're not going to reach confidence without experience. And if you do reach confidence without experience, that, my friends, is arrogance. It's different. Confidence without experience is only ever arrogance. So, there are times where we might need that, but if you want to get confident, practice.
Well, what I love is Leilani, who runs this for us, I promise you, has what she does when we do these is she writes down a few like time-stamped phrases, and her notepad right now probably looks like John Nash's classroom. Like if you ever saw A Beautiful Mind and there's stuff all over the place. Well, Phil, what's next for you? How can people get more Phil Jones in their life? How do real estate, which I believe our industry desperately needs more Phil Jones. So how do we do that?
There's a lot of it out there if you go search for it. You can find a ton of it for free. You can plug into some of the resources that we've already talked about, like the How to Persuade thing on Audible, or, really study exactly what to say for real estate and do it as a group, or plug into the new version of the book that's a self-guided sort of hardcover workbook edition. And I'm committing the rest of my professional life to help people upskill their conversations. That's what I do. I do it all day, every day. Maybe I'll come back and hang with you guys again sometime, or further the conversation from there. What I'm particularly keen to learn is what are the points of friction that you keep facing? Because that's what I love about my work is the landscape continually changes. The moments of influence are different today than they were 3 months ago. The moments of influence are different in 3 months than they are today. So, I remain sharper by practicing. So you as an organization be like, tell me what you're struggling with right now. Give me a new puzzle to solve. And, we're moving out of the inventory shortage difficulties and we're now talking about interest rate challenges and is now the right time? And like, I love hearing that stuff. So share with me those examples when they come up, and keep caring about this stuff together. Be brave enough to debrief, be brave enough to say, I came out of that listing appointment that I didn't win, and shift the lens from they made a mistake and put the mirror up and be brave enough to say, hey, what could I have done differently? What did I learn from not winning this today? And give yourself the grace of being less than perfect.
Phil, I appreciate it. I hope you guys found value in this. I encourage you to follow Phil. I encourage you to share what you've learned with the people you care about. Real estate is such a combative industry. It is, up there as far as competition wise. I've become obsessed with collaboration and learning from other people. And I went to Orlando not necessarily knowing what to expect and was completely blown away. But I'll tell you, I'm reading Phil's stuff every single day, not because I want to manipulate people, but because I honestly want to know how I can better help them. And our industry doesn't train on that. Our industry trains on 7 steps to blast off and how to, create flyers that trick people into getting you to list with them. Our industry doesn't train people on how to actually be able to be curious enough to build empathy, to then build courage. I loved everything you said, Phil, and I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate you willing to do this. And I think that we need more Phil in our life.
There you go. And Joe, just for you to know as well, is I am running a one-off 2-day immersive certification program just for real estate professionals that is happening in August in New York. So it's a 16-person 2-day mastermind where I am certifying people on exactly what to say for real estate materials. So if there's any interest of anyone here on your team, just ping me on Insta if you want any more of the details around that. And I think we only got 2 spots left, so it's not like a mass opportunity, but high quality people in the room talking about today's difficult conversations and coming out with it with answers, confidence, and understanding.
Love it. Okay, guys, thank you so much. Thanks, Phil. You're the best.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day.